What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Daniel Starkand. And Daniel, it feels like every time we get together, it's a roller coaster. As of now, oh, there we go. Our
I
friend is
almost
back.
forgot.
Coincidence. We're
I almost
we're filming this
forgot.
on Sunday night instead of Monday. Had not even totally spaced that our friend the Broom is back. The Dodgers have won 7 of their last 8. They've won back-to-back extra inning games. They've won back-to-back one-run games. They've outscored their opponents 36-13 this week after a 14-4 drubbing on Sunday to finish off the sweep. And I mean, we're riding high today. We picked up a game in the standings on Saturday. Like, things are trending up.
Yeah. I will say it's pretty crazy. I think towards the end of tonight's game, they gave a stat on ESPN like that the Dodgers have won 7 of 8 and only picked up one game on the Giants during that time. So that's pretty unfortunate. But yeah, we can only control what we can control, and the Dodgers are playing good baseball right now. You know, it's always fun getting this guy out. I almost forgot there for a second, but big sweep of the Mets. Like you said, it was 2 extra inning games that they
Yeah.
won, 2 one-run games, which they really struggled a lot with this season. So that was nice. And then, capped it off tonight with a convincing, blowout win. It's always fun when the other team is throwing out position players. Credit to Matt Beatty. He was the only one that really took full advantage of it by just destroying a ball. But yeah, overall fun weekend. The boys are coming home. We got the Pirates coming up. So it's a chance to kind of continue that momentum. But things are looking up right now. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
it's fun when you see a team and you kind of look at the Dodgers on paper and you sort of imagine, hey, what is this going to look like when Trey Turner's in there, when Max Scherzer's pitching? Tonight was the dream scenario. You know, I'm getting text messages from friends who are not Dodger fans like, hey, this isn't fair. Like, it's actually not fair. And you look at it and okay, so Trey Turner, Max Muncy, Justin Turner, Corey Seager, Will Smith, that was the first 5 batters in the Dodger lineup. They were 11 for 21 tonight. Every single one of them had at least 2 hits. Trey had 3. They combined for 4 home runs and a double. They combined for 10 runs, 10 RBIs, 6 walks, and just 1 strikeout. So this group reached base 17 out of 27 times tonight, knocked in 10 runs, scored 10 runs, and had 5 extra base hits. When you see it come together all at once and you realize that I didn't mention Chris Taylor, who struggled, I didn't mention Cody Bellinger, AJ Pollock, the list could go on of the guys that I could have mentioned. That's absurd when you think about that. Justin Turner's first. So I guess what I'm saying is it's fun when it's nice to talk about projections and oh, this and that. And I tweeted, it's nice to see the all-star lineup producing like an all-star lineup because that was unfair at some points it looked like today.
Yeah. I mean, what we saw tonight is just exactly what this lineup is capable of, and they're still missing, Mookie Betts,
Yeah.
who's out right now, so it could get even, longer. But just the depth of that lineup, there's no breaks. It's one guy after the next, and now that Cody's starting to hit a little more, he's not fully broken out yet, but he's definitely hitting adequately enough for a 7-hole hitter.
Yeah.
And the guys at the top and the middle are just on fire right now. So yeah, it's definitely fun to watch. And I'd say most important is they seem to be getting those like big hits when they need them too, which for a lot of the season hasn't really been the case. But we saw, Will Smith hits the game-winning home run the other night. They win 2 extra inning games, which we haven't seen. It was Cody who came up
Yeah.
with the other hit last night, the game winner. It feels like they weren't getting those hits for a lot of the season. That's why they were losing those close games. So it's good to see those, clutch situations. Guys are starting to come through. And that's the key, really, because we know they're going to have nights like tonight where they blow teams out. That happens, once or twice a week, but it's just a matter of those close games, can you find a way to get the big hit to come out on top? And right now they are, and it's fun to watch.
Totally. And it was fascinating when you and I did our live post game show on Friday because we got a question that I think on the surface was a really interesting question. But as soon as both you and I thought it, we came to the exact same conclusion. That question was, hey, can the Dodgers still win the World Series without Mookie Betts and without Clayton Kershaw? And I think the immediate reaction is, come on, don't be a homer. Of course they can't. If you're missing, your second best pitcher and your best position player, of course you can't. But then both of us immediately realized, well, they just added guys who are as good, if not better, at both of those positions to a lineup
Right.
that didn't have them a week ago. So we thought that with Kershaw and with Mookie, they were the favorites to win the World Series. Well, you could argue that Scherzer is an upgrade over Kershaw, and you could honestly make an argument that Trey Turner is an upgrade over Mookie Betts. We don't need to get into semantics. It's not important. The point being,
Right.
that just shows you, when you say, well, if they get Mookie Betts back, I mean, honestly, if they don't, the lineup still is constructed with Max Scherzer, with Walker Buehler, with Julio Urias. you're starting to see just how powerful and how much of a juggernaut this team could be. And we're almost operating in the worst case scenario now. Like I don't believe in jinxes, so I'll say that comfortably. But it does feel like, can things really get worse? Like Kershaw is out, Mookie is out, Justin Turner just returned. Obviously, we know about Bauer, we know about Dustin May, we know about all these other guys who are out. Cody Bellinger is struggling, but it does feel like it's only going to get better from here from a health perspective.
Yeah, and I just think at the end of the day, like the talent's going to weigh out.
Yeah.
And you can make an argument, this is the most talented baseball team ever, honestly. Like, and I don't even think that's an exaggeration because we like you just kind of mentioned, we were kind of saying that at the beginning of the season, and then they add Scherzer and Trey
Yep.
Turner on top of that. And it's just ridiculous. There's so much talent up and down the roster. But yeah, I mean, we've seen what injuries can do to this team, like especially this season when it's either everything's going right or everything's going wrong. So I'm with you. I don't want to jinx anything here because at any time, two more guys could go down or whatever, and guys start slumping, and then they'd lose 5 straight, and then now we're talking about a definite wild card situation instead of still battling for the division. So still a lot of baseball to be played. But I mean, things are going well right now, and when you look on the horizon, like guys are only going to start getting healthier. We talk about Mookie and Kershaw, like they'll be back at some point. Corey Knebel is now back. You mentioned Justin Turner is now back, so things are definitely looking on the up and up. We just need those Giants to maybe start losing a few games here so we could, cut into that lead.
Yeah, and the Dodgers, looking at the standings, the Dodgers have the second best record in baseball, so let's start there. They're winning 61% of their games. The problem is the team with the best record in baseball is the Giants, is 4 games better than them. As you said, the Dodgers go 8-2 in their last 10, winning 7 of their last 8. Well, guess what? The Giants go 8-2 in their last 10. The Dodgers basically haven't been able, I think it was like the first time in like 3 weeks or something that they actually gained a game on the Giants in the standings the other night. Of course, the Giants hold on to win on Friday night. They lose on Saturday, and then they win again on Sunday. So you look at the schedule, and the downside to all of this is the Dodgers just don't get that many more cracks at the Giants. I believe they only have one more 3-game series against the Giants. So if you're trying to make up 4 games against a team you don't play all that often, it is kind of difficult. I believe the Dodgers statistically have an easier schedule the rest of the way than the Giants and the Padres, if you want to worry about them, who, I mean, they are lingering. I guess not really anymore. They're 6 games back of the Dodgers, 10 games back of the division, and got no hit by a guy making his major league debut, who the Dodgers got cut from. Apparently, he was in camp with the Dodgers at one point. Not good enough for us, but shout out to that guy. Yeah, somebody said he did qualify as an old friend. I think it was Eric Steven. But I asked this question, I think, last time you and I talked. Where are we at? I mean, I feel like my confidence level is higher that the Dodgers can overcome this deficit. So we're at 118 games. So we got 44 games left in the season. The Dodgers are 4 games back. A week ago, I was talking to Matt, I guess, and we both kind of were like resigned to the fact that, like, yeah, it's gonna be a wild card. Like, this sucks. This is stupid. This is where we're at, though. It does feel different. You win 7 out of 8. You see the offense put up numbers. The problem is we haven't seen the Giants lose, and as long as that remains out of the Dodgers' control, which it is, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, and I think you just mentioned it. Like, you got to control what you can control. Like, the Dodgers can't. There's no way for them to help the Rockies or D-backs beat the Giants. Like, it feels like the Giants have been playing those two teams like every day for the last month. So I guess you mentioned the strength of schedule. I guess hopefully they'll be playing some harder teams moving forward. But like you said, the Dodgers only play the Giants 3 more times. So right now they're 4 out. Like, as things currently stand, even if they swept that series, they're still a game behind. So they're gonna need some help, and they're going to need to keep playing at the pace that they've been playing at, which is definitely possible. I mean, it's not like they're playing outrageous baseball. Like, they're playing good baseball right now. They're winning games, but I think there's still another level that this team could get to, as crazy as that sounds. Like, it's not like outside of tonight, like their bullpen screwed up in one of the games. The offense went quiet, for most of the last night. Taijuan Walker took a no-no into the 7th or whatever it was. So there's still room to get even better, but just the fact that they can now win games when they're not at their best is definitely a good sign, and hopefully they could continue. Do you know when that Giant series is? I don't think it's like
we've got a few
really
weeks.
that soon.
Yeah,
it's a few weeks away. So, who knows what the standings will look like between them. The hope is, I guess, that you could pick up a couple more games at least and go into that series with a chance to kind of control your
Yeah.
own destiny and take over first place with a few wins. That'd be the hope.
Yeah, September 3rd, 4th, and 5th are the dates of that one. And it is interesting because if you just do the math, right? Like, so 44 games left for the Dodgers. Let's say they go 30-14, which is a winning percentage of over, 2/3. So it's almost a 70% winning clip. The Giants in that scenario would have to go 26-18, which they're playing far better than that now. So you kind of start doing the math. Like, if the Giants are going to win 60% of their games from here on out, then the Dodgers are going to have to win like 70 to 75% of their games from here on out. So if 4 games both sounds like a little and like a ton, depending on how you want to look at it. So lots of season, 44 games. It feels longer. It feels like there's enough runway to catch them, but it's like watching a track race. It's like at some point you got to make your move. The Dodgers have started to make their move. The Giants are running with them. We'll see which team can hold and sort of keep the pace for the next 44 games. Let's shift into
and just real quick, ironically enough, the Giants and the Padres still play each other 10 times. So we're actually going to be rooting for the Padres in some of these games. Like, who would have thought that would be the case? Like, if I told you at the beginning of the season that we'd be here in the middle of August rooting for the Padres to win games.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy, but that's, the reality we live in at this point.
And the Dodgers have 3 series against the Padres as well. 2 of those are at home and 1 of those is on the road. So let's shift gears a little bit, looking back at this past week where the Dodgers have been on fire. And let's do a little bit of stock up and stock down. I asked you a trivia question, so you know the answer now offline. But I looked at FanGraphs, and you can give me the stats over the last 7 days, not counting Sunday's performance because it hadn't been uploaded into the system. The Dodger, I'll ask the fans and you can guess along. Who is the Dodger that leads the team in wins above replacement offensively, according to FanGraphs over the last 7 days? Again, not including Sunday. So prior to Sunday, Sunday through Saturday, which Dodger led the team in wins above replacement offensively? The answer, I guarantee you, will surprise you because it's none other than Cody Bellinger. Couldn't believe it. He had 3 home runs over that stretch, so I guess that counts for a ton. But anyways, he is not qualifying in either of our camps for stock up or stock down. I'll let you go first. You've got the guy that I think most people probably said out loud when they were thinking about that, the guy who's been on an absolute tear. So you go first, and then I'll go from there.
Yeah. First of all, that Cody stat was pretty crazy. I did not expect that at all. But credit to him. But for me, he's just got to keep going a little more.
Yeah.
Not ready to throw him in this category yet. But my first stock up is the biggest no-brainer of the week, and that's Will Smith. The Fresh Prince, the Clutch Prince, whatever you want to call him. He homers in all 3 games against the Mets. His OPS on the year is up over 870, which is pretty ridiculous for a guy who's now playing just about every day, by the way. Like, I feel like a large portion of the season we're kind of getting mad at Dave Roberts for him and Austin Barnes splitting time or whatever. But Will Smith has taken on the large majority, pretty much since the All-Star break, and he's made the most of it. He's got 18 homers on the year. I mean, I don't know how this guy wasn't an all-star. We've talked about that a lot. But as time goes by, that is looking even more and more ridiculous. Like, there's honestly an argument to be made that this guy's, like, right on the cusp of being, like, in the MVP conversation here just because of everything he gives the Dodgers. So, I don't know what else there is to say about him. There's no one I feel more comfortable with, in a big spot late in the game. Like, I think one of the stats they gave on tonight's game that, like, he has, like, five game tying or go ahead hits in the last like month or so for the Dodgers. Like, it's absolute, and in the team's last at bats, I should add to that stat. That was the stat. So it's crazy. He's been ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out that he had 3 straight games with a home run. 2 of those were in 1-run victories. So, you can feel the moment there. I had this quote for later, but I'll throw it in here because I think it's worth saying now. Dave Roberts talking about Will Smith in big moments. He says, "I'm confident in Will. I really am. You see it time and time again. The pulse, the heartbeat stays in the strike zone, doesn't run from it. You're not going to be successful every time, but you can just tell when a player embraces those moments. There's big spots where he can take a walk and takes the walk. There's big spots when he gets a homer and he hits a homer. We have a lot of those guys, but I'll tell you, Will, for being a young player, he's right there at the top. He has a lot of guys to watch in the lineup that can do the same thing." And I read that, and it's just something that I can't put my finger on, but he just doesn't look rattled at any point in those moments. He goes down 2 strikes, no big deal. Obviously, the biggest moment of his career was the Will Smith off of Will Smith home run. Arguably, outside of Cody Bellinger's home run in Game 7 of the NLCS, You could argue that was like the second biggest swing of the entire postseason run. Huge from him. But there's just something about him where it doesn't seem like he gets rattled. The moment is never too big for him. And, I'm just thinking about how many guys would I take ahead of him. Like if you told me bases loaded, bottom ninth, Dodgers down by 1, 2 outs, with the World Series on the line, how many guys on the Dodgers are you taking ahead of Will Smith? Like for me, I probably take Justin Turner. I probably take Max Muncy. And I probably take, Mookie Betts, Corey Seager. I mean, those 4 guys, that's the short list. And, Trey Turner, obviously, I haven't seen enough there just from the perspective of him as a Dodger. But I don't even know if I think Turner, for me, is for sure the guy I probably have at the top of that list. I think Muncy probably belongs in that question. But then I think, I think Mookie, Will Smith, and Corey Seager probably are kind of somewhere in the 3, 4, 5 range for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that Will Smith versus Will Smith at bat and how he never gets rattled. Like that was the perfect example.
That was the at bat to get rattled in.
Yeah, exactly. The first 2 pitches were both outside the strike zone, called strikes. So he's down 0-2 in a hostile environment. You're down 3-1 to the Braves, and he works the count full and then gets a pitch to hit and hits it for a homer. So that's the perfect example of him not getting rattled right there. And it's true. I mean, he just always has that calm look on his face. And you just always feel like he's going to come through in those big spots. So I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. I mean, Will Smith, I've said it before, he's probably my favorite player on the Dodgers. And I think this is part of it. There's a calmness about him that doesn't make sense. It straight up does not make sense. These guys should be rattled in these moments, and yet he never feels to be. Even in, reading the quote after the game, he's like, yeah, like just trying to put something in the air, trying to move the guy over, and, turned on it, and, hey, and the next thing you know, it's over the wall. And I'm like, yeah, no kidding, Will. No kidding, it was. So Will Smith, as you said, the biggest no-brainer, easiest stock up of the week. My stock up, I'll go with a couple of relievers for my first one. I'll start with Alex Vesia. Look, we've talked about him, and he's unbelievable. He was down for a month in this period, but he's allowed 1 earned run since May 30th. So obviously there was a month in there, but you could basically say beginning of July until now, he's allowed 1 earned run. His last 17 innings pitched, 5 hits allowed and 3 walks. So he's got a whip of under 0.5, and he's striking out 22 in 17 innings. So he's got a K per 9 of 13, and then a whip under 0.5 with 1 earned run in his last 17 appearances dating back a month and a half. From the left side, absolutely fantastic stuff from Alex Vesia. And we've seen it. There's 2 guys. The other one's going to be my next one. But there's 2 of these relievers that are working themselves into the high leverage situations, and it feels like the sample size is getting to a point where you actually trust them. Vesia is the top of that list for me.
Yeah, and this is just another case of, we got to give Andrew Friedman credit here, because when they got Vesia in the trade for Dylan Floro, that was kind of criticized at the time. Like, everyone was asking, why are you giving away a quality reliever in Floro for a guy in Vesia who's not even he wasn't even a big time prospect. He had very little major league experience. But the one thing that Andrew Friedman saw is his vertical rise on his fastball was like top 5 in the league. And it was like in the same category with like Walker Buehler. And Friedman recognized that, and he brought him in, and it didn't look great at first. Like Vesia's first few outings were kind of not great. He's walking a lot of guys, and everyone's criticizing that trade even more. Like, why'd we do that? And then, they send him back down, and he finds his stride. There was a point where he struck out 15 straight guys in AAA, which obviously is incredible no matter what level, and especially in like a hitter-friendly environment such as AAA. And he's just continued that ever since he's gotten called up. And we're honestly at the point where he's the most trustworthy lefty in that bullpen. And they've tried out a lot of lefties this year. Like that list has been a long one. So for him to kind of emerge as the best one, good for him, and good for Andrew Friedman for recognizing, what he could be. And it's pretty crazy that we're not even a year in and he's already showing it.
Yeah, with like 6 more years of control under his belt. So obviously you hope Victor Gonzalez can come back and regain some of it, and then all of a sudden you've got 2 lefties. Obviously Scott Alexander was pitching really well before he went down, but that was a long time ago. So it does feel like from the left side, if Victor Gonzalez can come back, depending on what David Price's role is long term, then there's some stability there. So Vesia is the first stock up for me. Daniel, I'll turn to you for your second person on the list.
Yeah, my next one is Max Muncy, and it's a stock up. It honestly probably wouldn't have been before tonight. He came into tonight's game just batting, around 200 on the month. But but anytime you go deep twice, you hit another ball to the warning track right where the other two homers were. All of them were kind of left center. He also walked. So it was just a really big game for Muncy, and that's something he could kind of build off of. He's been outstanding all year. Obviously, I feel like there's not enough things we could say about
Yeah.
the year he's having. He's another guy who should and will be in the MVP discussion. So we talk about how this lineup is as good as it gets. He's right there in the middle doing the damage all year. He's been pretty much the one constant. Like he
Yeah.
hasn't missed a lot of time to injury either, whereas all the guys around him
Yep.
have been kind of a revolving door. So not enough we could say about him. He's been great.
Awesome. Well, my second, I'm going to go back to the bullpen. It's a guy you and I talk about a lot. Phil Bickford has not allowed a run in August. 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts. His interview reading the transcript was hilarious because it was like 1 sentence answers. But obviously, the answer that I saw making the rounds on social media was, "Did you expect to be in high leverage situations?" And he said 100%. Everybody who pitches wants to be in those spots. He's been in those spots. And he's been fantastic. I mean, I think it was last night that he came out of the game with 1 out left in the game. They bring Corey Knebel in, and he had looked fantastic. I believe he was pitching. My memory is fading, but I think he was pitching in his second inning. He had come in the was it the 9th, and then he's still in there in the 10th, and he just makes the first 2 guys look foolish. They pull him out because they're afraid of the lefty thing. Knebel ends up getting out of it, so nothing to worry about there. But I mean, another guy where he has the prospect pedigree, he has the background, and we know the story. Grew up a Dodger fan, claimed off of waivers basically, and man has he been good. And Robert said, look, it's mid 90s velocity. The velocity's good. I think the velocity's up. We might have talked about this last week, but it's up like 2 miles an hour from the beginning of the year. But the biggest thing is he puts it right where he wants it to, as Dave Roberts said. It's the accuracy combined with the upper middle 90s fastball. So again, no runs in August. 10 strikeouts in his last 7 innings pitched, just 5 base runners allowed. Really good stuff. And again, Bickford and Vesia, you add that to Knebel, you add that to Treinen, you add that to Jansen, all of a sudden the back end of the bullpen gets a little bit longer.
Yeah, and another thing with Bickford is like that guy's just got a rubber arm. Like it feels like he's in almost every game. Like I haven't looked it up, but I'd venture to guess that since he joined the team, he probably leads them in appearances because it feels like he's ready to go every night, no matter what the situation is. Like, and he's been great. So yeah, definitely a deserving stock up there. My last one, it's a stock down. Not too much cause for concern, but Chris Taylor is slumping a little bit over the last week. He's batting, below 200. He's got 10 strikeouts and 27 at bats. We saw tonight he went 1 for 6 with 4 strikeouts. So like I just said, no cause for concern there, but it's definitely probably his worst patch of the season. I don't know. It feels like he's been pretty steady all year long. So he was due, I guess. He made it all the way to August without really truly slumping. So no big deal. I'm sure he'll be out of it soon. But ideally, you want to cut down on the strikeouts, like 10 strikeouts and 27 at bats. It's a little too much for my liking. But he's kind of with his swing, it leads to more strikeouts. But if he could cut that down, he'll get back to where he was and be the all-star guy he's been all year.
Yeah, not to go backwards here, but I'll throw a trivia question out there. I looked it up. The most appearances over the last 30 days. So Bickford has been with the Dodgers. He is first. He's made 15 appearances in the last 30 days. Do you want to take a guess at, let's say, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are on that list out of the Dodger bullpen?
2, 3, 4. I'm sure Treinen and Kenley are
Treinen
both
is
there.
second. Here, Treinen, 13 appearances, 13 and 2/3. He has not allowed an earned run over that stretch. So a 0.00 ERA for Treinen.
He's been incredible all year.
Jansen is 5th. So 3rd and 4th, a little surprising to me, but it's Vesia and Gratterall are actually 3rd and 4th on that list.
Oh, wow.
With 11 appearances.
I was gonna say Vesia, but I wouldn't have gotten Gratterall just because he's kind of been up and down or whatever.
So there you go. So 15 appearances in 30 days for Bickford, 13 for Treinen, 11 for Vesia, 11 for Gratterall, 10 for Jansen. Joe Kelly 8th, and then you're into starting pitcher territory. So there you go. Speaking of starting pitchers, how about that for a transition? My last stock up is the Dodgers starting pitching over the last 6 games, over the last week. We know it was a weird one. You had the Scherzer game where he only pitched 3 1/3, rain out. You had a David Price start. You had a Mitch White start. But in the whole, 6 games, 29 1/3 innings pitched, 21 hits, 7 earned runs, 33 strikeouts, an ERA of 2.14. Look, when you're playing 6 games, you have your ace on the mound and he gets rained out. And then you've got Mitch White and David Price lumped in there as well. And you can throw together a 6-game performance where your starting pitchers are giving you basically 5 innings and 2.1 ERA. You'll take it. So credit to the Dodgers starting pitching. Again, more than a strikeout per inning. The walks and hits, not where you want to see it, but 2.14 ERA. So that was a tough stretch as far as bullpen games and stuff. And we'll talk about this week. We've got more Mitch White, more David Price, and more bullpen games on deck. But I got to give a shout out to the Dodgers starting pitching. Because despite all the adversity and all that, they came through in a big way for the Dodgers this past week.
Yeah, and that unit's been great all year, like kind of regardless of who it's been. I know they've very rarely had 5 starters all healthy at a time. Like it feels like they've been going with bullpen games a lot, but whoever has been in there has been great, and they've also provided length, which kind of allows them to do those bullpen games because you're going to get 6, 7, 8 innings out of Buehler, Scherzer, Julio, those guys every time out. So they've been great. It's pretty crazy to think about, like if going back to like spring training and opening day, like the Dodgers pretty widely were considered the best rotation in baseball. But if you look now, they're missing 4 of their top 6 guys with Kershaw's out, May's out, Gonsolin's out, and Trevor Bauer's out. And somehow they still pretty much have the best rotation in baseball with the guys they do have. So that's just incredible. I mean, hopefully some of those guys could start getting healthy because, ideally we don't want any more bullpen games. But when they've been in there, they've been great.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, they have the best team ERA from starting pitching, 2.90 ERA for the Dodgers starter on the season. Wow. They lead the league in strikeouts per 9 innings from starting pitching, and they're, without sorting it, they're right near the top in walks per 9 as well. So when you're one of the best strikeout teams, you're second in walks per 9, and you have the best ERA in baseball. That'll do it. That'll help. So shout out there. So let's transition to the week in quotes. This will get at some of the bigger storylines going on. And the first one is kind of the biggest storyline, which is Mookie Betts. There was a bone spur in his hip. He did get an injection. Pain has subsided. When Dave Roberts was asked about his return, this is what he said, quote, "When he can return, I still don't know because he's got to get ramped up and see how he feels. Outside of that, I have no educated comment." That was kind of, when does he return? What's it going to look like the rest of the year? I don't know, is basically Dave Roberts' quote. You and I talked on the post-game show. Like, there's a part of me that wonders if he even comes back this season. If he does come back, I think it's safe to say it's not going to be anywhere near 100%. Obviously, offensively, it looks like he's fine, but it's defensively and running where he'll be most impacted. So what do you make of the Mookie Betts situation now that we're a few days removed and sort of a little bit more details have sort of started to trickle out?
Yeah, I mean, it's never ideal when the manager does not have any sort of timetable to give. Like, that's never a good thing, and that also obviously means that he's not close. So this isn't going to be a situation of he just misses the minimum 10 days and then is back or whatever. But honestly, it makes sense that there's no timetable because, with a hip, we talked about this the other night, there's really no treatment for it outside of just kind of resting and hope it gets better. I guess it's a positive sign that Dave Roberts said the pain has started subsiding. That's a good thing. But, I guess we're just kind of in wait and see mode. I'm with you. I wouldn't be surprised if he's shut down eventually. But I think he's going to do everything he can to get back. To me, for him to be shut down, it would be a case of he comes back and it's still not getting better and it's getting worse. And then he's kind of in jeopardy of, further damage, which obviously when you got him signed for 10 years at 28 years old or whatever he is, like you don't want to risk that. Like if he has to miss this year to be healthy moving forward, you do that every time. It definitely seems like he's probably going to get some sort of surgery when the season ends. So I guess we're just in wait and see mode if he could, make it through a couple months of baseball here before having to do that.
Yeah, and again, we talked a little bit. It's fascinating because typically in most years you would say, hey, no rush. The Dodgers have a 6-game lead in the division. They'll be fine. Yeah. They're in this tough spot where you need him for the postseason, and yet you also kind of need him for the stretch run. And so that's the difficult place that the Dodgers are in. The good news is, by all accounts, it's unlikely he would make things any worse. It's just a matter of pain tolerance. We know Mookie's a tough guy, so if he felt it was bad enough to where he had to take a spot on the injured list, he's not active right now, so it's not like it's going to be a quick 10-day turnaround either. Concerning stuff there, to say the least. The other injury list.
I also, real quick, let me just say, I will say though, I guess the one thing working in his favor is that with the addition of Trey Turner and him now hitting at the top of the lineup and being able to steal bases whenever he wants, like that kind of would allow Mookie to kind of take it easy. Like he could come back and just hit and play the field and maybe not, run the bases as aggressively or whatever. He'd be hitting in the middle of the lineup as opposed to the top.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of a way to still come back and play, but being able to manage the pain at the same
No,
time.
it's a great point. It's a great point. As I said, the other injured list news was Julio Urias going to the injured list. He got hit by a pitch on the calf. Stayed in the game, pitched well. That was the post-game show we did. Why did he come out after 5 innings? We won't rehash that. This is what Dave Roberts says, quote, "It's something that when you're talking about the lower half, we don't want to put it in harm's way at all. Figuring there was some swelling in the calf, if we can skip him, get him right, hopefully it's just the 10 days and get him back in there. Just don't want the mechanics to be compromised by a contusion." The idea being, hey, maybe he misses just one start and then he's back in 10 days. No big deal. My immediate reaction was, hey, the Dodgers found an excuse to put him on the injured list without pissing anybody off, and this is their way to limit his innings. What was your reaction to this? And this isn't to diminish. It's possible he's injured. It just felt like one of those things where it's a bruise. It felt like, but this felt like overly precautionary, if not like basically looking for an excuse to get him a skip.
Yeah, it definitely seems like that was part of it, and it makes sense. Like he's already surpassed his career high in innings. You don't want him going into October necessarily with 200 innings under his belt. Like in a perfect world, you would have been able to do this a while ago, but because of all the injuries like we talked about, they haven't really had that luxury.
Totally.
Honestly, right now isn't even an ideal time to do it. They don't even have 5 healthy starters right now, but I guess it makes some sense considering like he'll be missing a start against the Pirates, which in theory, you should still be able to win, even if it's a bullpen game or calling up Andre Jackson or another starter or whatever. Like, you should be able to take care of that. And then he'd be able to come back to make his next start. So he wouldn't be missing too much time. But yeah, obviously, if he's actually injured, like that's the main focus here. Like, we hope he's okay because he's having such a great year that like the last thing we need right now is for him to get hurt. Like you said, he got hit by a pitch on the calf, so you don't really think it's anything too serious. So let's just hope, it's kind of let's give him a start off to limit his innings, and maybe he's in a little pain, but it'll be better in a couple days. But yeah, it's never ideal when one of your like 3 healthy starters or whatever is going down right now. But I mean, if it's a one start thing, then it's it's not a big deal. They'll be all right.
Yeah, he's the guy that I think most people are like, well, is he a starter? Is he a reliever once the postseason comes? Now it's like, no, they need him as a starting pitcher.
Yeah.
Even if Kershaw comes back, you need him as your 4th starter because the gap between him and everybody else is so dramatic. Obviously, for the 4th starter, that allows for some relief pitching as well. But Urias is definitely much needed there. The next quote here, a guy that I think Dodger fans, I don't even know if mixed opinions is accurate on, Billy McKinney. A lot of people have asked, what's the deal? Why is Billy McKinney playing so much? Here's what Dave Roberts says, quote, "The value in Billy is a good at-bat. In the 8 hole, he's not there to carry the offense. He's there to take good at-bats, see pitches, turn the lineup over, which he has done. With our roster where it's at, he's a couple grades better than anyone else we could put out there. You still have to prevent runs to win baseball games." Any reaction to that quote as far as why Billy McKinney? Quote, "He's a couple grades better than anyone else we could put out there." I'm guessing he's referring to defense specifically in that quote, but yeah, just a really interesting situation there. And I'll say this. A lot of people have started retweeting the DJ Peters home runs like, oh, what are the Dodgers doing? They're so stupid. Look, we all saw DJ Peters. He was a mess. He was a mess. Do not convince yourself that the Dodgers screwed this one up. He was a mess.
No, yeah. With the DJ Peters thing, sometimes like a change of scenery could help out a guy. He's obviously getting an opportunity to play on a team that's way out of the postseason race, so it's not like there's any pressure there. So I'm not looking too far into the DJ Peters thing. Obviously, we would have liked him to be doing that for us, but it's not like he didn't get the chances.
Yeah.
Like you just said, we all watched him take plenty of at bats earlier in the year, and no one was missing him after he got sent down. Let me just put it that way. But I think I'll agree with Roberts. Like McKinney's better than a lot of the other options they've thrown out there, whether it's Peters when they did give him chances, Zach Rex, Luke Raley, Sheldon Noisy. Like he's better than those guys. But I'd say, on this exact roster, like Matt Beatty, I don't think he's 2 steps above Matt Beatty or whatever. Like, yeah, he's a better defender, but I think Beatty's clearly a better offensive player. So I'm not as low on McKinney as some other people. But I will also say, like, he's been playing pretty much every day at this point, which I think is a little bit unnecessary. Like, maybe, give him a part-time role and he could have some value. Um, but honestly, the other guy that I thought they should have given a shot, and we talked about this the other night, was Yoshi, because
Yeah.
he was raking for a little bit in AAA, but now that option's out the window, and we're probably even going to be seeing him, against us this week when he's now with the Pirates. The Dodgers released him so he could, get a major league opportunity with the Pirates. So I honestly probably would have,
Yeah.
now if Yoshi is asking out of his contract, I probably would have just said, hey, we'll call you back up. Like, I think he's a better option than McKinney, but obviously they like McKinney. Like, I think it's pretty clear that, him being in the lineup every day shows what they think of him, even though the production necessarily hasn't been there. So I guess we'll just wait and see. Like, hopefully, when Mookie comes back and whatever, like, he's, we don't see as
Yeah.
many McKinney starts, because I'm not nearly as high on him as Dave Roberts, I guess.
Yeah, and somebody pointed out the Dodgers, their best pitchers are all fly ball guys, and so that's why you want to have a better defender out there in right field. And look, we've seen Nat Beatty out there. We've seen some pretty ugly performances from right fielders. Even Zach McKinstry, it's like, oh wait, we were used to Kike Hernandez and Chris Taylor being really good everywhere they got put.
Yeah.
Like, Zach McKinstry can play a lot of positions. He doesn't play any of them at a high level defensively. He's fine.
True.
And it is interesting, too. I mean, McKinney's average is terrible. His slugging percentage is terrible. His on-base percentage was like over 330, which is not a good number. But to Dave Roberts' point, if you're looking for a number 8 hitter to just take good at-bats, turn over the lineup, and then play good defense, McKinney is doing that. Like, if he's reaching 1 out of every 3 at-bats, even if it's a walk most of the time, he had like 11 walks and 7 hits or something like that. Like, that's still your job. Like, you're not looking for a guy to hit home runs in the 8 spot. So I'm not here to defend Billy McKinney, but I do think defensively we've seen enough guys that weren't capable out there to say, like, hey, I like what he's given us defensively. And if the offense, if he can get the on-base percentage up to like 350, even if he's still hitting only 200 with no extra base hits, like, you can kind of live with that given the circumstances. Now, Zach McKinstry has been available and is not taking that spot, which I found interesting. He was on the taxi squad, was not added to the roster as quickly as he could have been. So we'll see if that changes, but that's an interesting storyline because McKinstry was hitting really, really well. He's the best option of the 3, including Beatty, offensively. The question is how big of a gap there is defensively. One other quote to throw at you, and this is just because this was our post-game show on Friday. There was a situation there where Justin Brule was on the mound for the Dodgers. We talked a little bit about this as the Dodgers blowing a 4-run lead. Obviously, Brule with a little bit of bad luck, a couple bloop singles, walks, wild pitches, etc. Dave Roberts was asked, Justin Brule was left in to face McNeil, I believe it was, after Alonso was intentionally walked with the bases to load the bases. And then McNeil ends up getting a bloop single, 2-run score, and then Trinan comes in, throws a wild pitch, and all of a sudden the game's tied. He was asked after that game, we were doing the live show, so I didn't see this, why did you trust Justin Brule instead of going to Blake Trinan right away to get to McNeil? Because Brule had well passed Alonso was the 3rd batter, so they could have taken Brule out. They didn't go to Trinan immediately. And Dave Roberts, quote, why did you trust Justin Brule? Quote, because of what he has done. And you and I had the same reaction to that quote. What exactly has Justin Brule done in that situation? I'm not here to pile on to Dave Roberts, but this quote I laughed when I read this quote.
Yeah. This was like the shrug emoji for me. Like what does that even mean? Yeah. Like, I didn't even know this guy existed like a week ago. Yeah. Like, and Dave Roberts probably didn't either, if we're being honest. But like, I don't know. I guess I get that Dave has trust in his guys. That's always kind of been his thing. But that one is a head scratcher for me.
Yeah. Well, tonight's going to be a short show as we post, but let's talk a little bit about the week ahead. You kind of hinted at it. Pirates and then the Mets. Obviously, the Dodgers coming off a sweep of the Mets and the Pirates, one of the worst teams in baseball. Interesting because of the pitching. The Dodgers have a bullpen game Monday, David Price Tuesday, and Mitch White on Wednesday. And then they've got the Mets after that. It feels like one of those weeks where I usually ask you, hey, what is a record that you need to see out of this scenario for the Dodgers? It's a full week. It's 7 games. All 7 are at home. This feels like it needs to be 6-1. Is that too much to ask of the Dodgers, considering a bullpen game, David Price and Mitch White pitching the first 3? Or is that what needs to happen given the circumstances?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say 5-2 at worst, but you're right. I mean, with the way the Giants are playing, like you definitely got to keep pace with them, if not be better.
Yeah.
So if you're going 4-3 or 3-4, and you lose a game or two in the standings, now you're back to 5 or 6 out. Like then now the clock's really ticking. So you got to keep it up. I'm with you. 6-1 would be a good week. They say tomorrow's a bullpen game, but it could also be an Andre Jackson game or the other bullpen game. Like he's ready to go. He's on the 40-man roster, so they would just have to call him up. And for me, that would make more sense than just a full-on bullpen game. Like even if he doesn't give you a ton of length, like if he could give you 4 solid innings, that's about as much as you could ask, and that saves the bullpen at least a little bit, considering the bullpen's already been taxed, and like you said, it's a 7-game week, so there's no off days mixed in there. Yeah. So it's going to be a long week. You got to get as much from your starters as you can. So I'd prefer an Andre Jackson game as opposed to just a full-on bullpen game. Yeah. Especially when it's the Pirates too. So like it's not like that competition isn't much different than AAA for Andre Jackson.
No offense, right? No offense, but
no offense.
Yeah,
no offense to Brian Reynolds, who's having a great year. That's about it.
I mean, as of next Sunday, the Dodgers will have played 13 straight days. So that's got to be factored in. Obviously, they get moved to Sunday Night Baseball tonight and then have to travel across the country to get back home. Pittsburgh beat them to Los Angeles. So kind of a bizarre one there. But it does feel like, and then you've got David Price, who is giving you 4, maybe 5 innings. Mitch White, 4 on a good day. So it does feel like, and Julio on the injured list, obviously Scherzer and Buehler, you can pencil in at least 6, hopefully 7. But man, it does feel like you need somebody there. And even if it's 4 innings, that's a much better scenario than, Edwin Uceda for 1 2/3 or whatever out of these other guys. And so you don't want to be in the midst of a 13 games in 13 days scenario with coming off of an East Coast road trip and then have your bullpen a mess. So, so did you say, is Jackson potentially pitching on Monday, or are they saying?
I think it would be Monday. If Mitch White's pitching Wednesday, then it would be Jackson on Monday, because he would have been in line to pitch today in AAA, I believe, or yesterday, and they held him out. So he's on normal rest or extra rest even. So he's ready to go if they need him.
And that's a guy that, you would imagine hasn't had to have the crazy travel schedule following a Sunday Night Baseball game that the Dodgers would have. Obviously, I don't know where Oklahoma City was, because I believe Jackson is in AAA. So I don't know exactly what that looks like, but you would hope that would be better. Obviously, again, we're recording this on Sunday night, and there's no news yet. So hopefully, by the time you're watching this, maybe there's an update there. But it's a big week for the Dodgers. Obviously, the Pirates are very bad, and the Dodgers just swept the Mets, and kind of, obviously 2 of those were in extra innings, but for the most, one of those games they had a 4-run lead in. So I would say for the most part, aside from Taijuan Walker pitching as well as he did, it felt like the Dodgers were a dramatically better team. And your pitching lines up, so they are going to get, when you get to that 4-game set, against the Mets, you're going to get Buehler and you're going to get Scherzer for 2 of those games. Then you've got another bullpen game in David Price. So all things considered, that's basically the best 4 that the Dodgers can throw at a team right now. So we'll see. So 5-2 for Daniel is the minimum. I'm going 6-1. I need 6-1. I'd like to see 7. I'd like to see just an absolute dominant stretch, rattle off one of those.
That'd be nice.
I want to see us rattle off one of those. What year was it when Manny Ramirez was here, and the Dodgers won like 42 out of 50 games? We need one of those stretches.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, I think they won up to with like 43-7 in one of the years too. Those were crazy. Those stretches were ridiculous. They were winning every day. So yeah, it would be nice to close the season on a stretch like that. I think that'd probably make up the 4 games.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. So, like I said, a little bit shorter tonight, but I am out of town this upcoming week, but Daniel and I will hopefully be doing a live post-game show at the end of the week, and then I'm here for the stretch run. So we got about 37 games from when I get back, and I'm here, so we'll be more regular there. So we appreciate you joining us as always. Click subscribe, tell your friends, ring the notification bell. We'd love to have you join us for the stretch run. Obviously, hopefully the Dodgers going for yet another division title and another deep postseason run, potentially with back-to-back World Series. We'll see. But that's Daniel Starkand. I'm Jeff Spiegel. Check out DodgerBlue.com, DodgerBlue1958, everyone on social media. And don't forget, Daniel's got his broom out because the Dodgers have won 7-8 and swept the Mets.
The best team holding a trophy high in the air. The Los Angeles Dodgers, champions of the baseball world.